Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something that, well, it turns everything you know about business completely on its head. It's a framework called the 3 Laws of Corporate Entropy. And the core idea? Doing everything right might actually be the fastest way to fail. Seriously.
All right, let's just jump right in with a wild idea. I want you to forget all the usual metrics you worry about, customer churn, burn rate, all that stuff, just for a second. Now, what if I told you the single most dangerous number in your business is how many quarters in a row you've hit all your targets? Yeah, I know it sounds completely insane, right? But that right there is the heart of what we're calling the perfection trap.
And look, this isn't just a thought experiment. The data actually backs this up. If you look at the S&P 500 companies that basically vanished over the last decade, a whopping 52% of them weren't taken out by a competitor. No, they were killed by their own success. They perfected their way right into oblivion.
We've all seen this story before. We've seen it play out with these huge companies who are, let's be honest, the absolute best at what they did. I mean, think about it. Kodak, they made the best film, period. The Swiss watchmakers, the best mechanical watches on the planet. Nokia, you couldn't break those phones. And yet, their mastery, the very thing that made them dominant, became the exact thing that made them blind. The world was changing right under their noses and they couldn't see it.
So the big question is how? How does being excellent suddenly become your biggest weakness? Well, this framework breaks it down into 3 laws of entropy. And the first 2, they're the ones that set this whole trap. They're all about the hidden dangers of being stable and being an expert.
Okay, so law number 1, it says that when a company gets really good at optimizing, streamlining every single process, hitting every target quarter after quarter, it feels like you're incredibly strong. Bulletproof even. But what you're really doing is building a hidden weakness. You're creating a system that's so perfectly tuned, so rigid, that it can't adapt to anything new.
The best way to think about it is like a forest. Imagine firefighters put out every single little fire for, say, 50 years. From an airplane, that forest canopy looks perfect. It's green, it's lush, it's healthy. But down on the forest floor, all this dead wood has been piling up, silently. And then, when a real fire finally comes, and it always does, it doesn't just burn off the little stuff. No, it becomes a firestorm that incinerates the entire forest.
Now, the second law, this one gets personal. This isn't about company processes anymore. It's about your brain. It's about neuroscience. It explains that crazy phenomenon where the absolute smartest people in the room are somehow the last ones to see a huge shift coming. It's all about how your brain literally rewires itself to make you an expert.
And here's the crazy paradox, right? The very thing that made you so successful, that deep, hard-won expertise, that eventually becomes the very thing that stops you from seeing what's next. It becomes your single biggest blind spot.
And the reason this is so hard to fight is it's not a character flaw. You're not lazy, you're not unimaginative, it's literally biology. It's neuroscience. When you get good at something, your brain physically wraps those neural connections in a fatty sheath called myelin. Think of it like paving a superhighway in your brain. It makes you incredibly fast and efficient on that one path. But that same superhighway makes it neurologically painful, almost impossible, to even think about taking a different road.
Okay, so if the first 2 laws are building this invisible cage around you, how in the world do you get out? Well, the framework says there's only one way, and it's not gentle. It's a third, much more aggressive law. You have to fight back with demolition.
And we're not talking about just smashing things for the sake of it. This is about a controlled demolition. It's strategic. Think of it like taking down an old skyscraper. You don't just throw dynamite at it. No, you bring in engineers who place charges precisely so the whole thing collapses neatly into its own footprint. You're doing it on your terms before an earthquake or a hurricane comes along and smashes it into the street for you.
So let's see how this actually plays out in the real world, because this isn't just some abstract theory. We can see the massive difference between companies that embrace this idea and those that don't through a few really powerful examples.
Okay, so you've got this perfect contrast between Nokia and Intel when they were both staring down the barrel of a crisis. Nokia, totally trapped by its own expertise, asked, how do we do what we're already doing but better? They tried to optimize their way out. But Intel, led by Andy Grove, asked a much harder question. He asked, if we were fired and a new CEO came in, what would they do? See the difference? One question leads to survival. The other? Well, it leads to the corporate graveyard.
Now, what happened to Nokia? Well, their choice to just optimize harder led to this, a total freefall. They went from owning almost half the entire market to basically nothing in just 5 years. And the scariest part?
All their internal reports, their dashboards, everything was green. All the lights are green, right up until the company was basically dead.
Now look at Intel. That one single act of controlled demolition. I mean, walking away from the memory chip business that was their entire identity, it led to this. They blew up their own core business, and what was their reward? 30 years of dominating the market and a 17-fold increase in revenue. Just incredible.
So Intel shows this as like a once-in-a-generation act of courage. But then you have a modern example, like the crypto protocol Uniswap. For them, Law 3 isn't a one-time thing. It's their entire philosophy. They're what you'd call perpetual cannibals. They'll build a product, let it completely dominate the market, and then they'll deliberately kill it with their next version. On purpose, on a schedule, before anyone else gets the chance.
Okay, so this is where it gets real. How do you apply this to your own business or even your own career? How do you know if you're building something that can last or if you're accidentally turning into the next Nokia? Well, let's run a quick diagnostic. A few questions to ask yourself.
First question, be honest. When was the last time one of your core business assumptions was seriously challenged? And I mean really challenged. If you can't think of a specific month or even a quarter, that's a huge red flag. It means that dead wood from Law 1 is already piling up, and you can't even see it.
Second question, what are you most proud of? What's the one skill, the one process that you guys have absolutely perfected? The thing you're famous for? Got it? Okay, that is your mile-in. That's your Law 2 vulnerability. It is by definition your biggest blind spot.
And third, you have to ask that famous Andy Grove question. And you have to be brutally, painfully honest with yourself. What would a brand new CEO, a total outsider, do on their first day in your job? Whatever that answer is, the distance between that and what you're actually doing today, well, that's the size of your entropy problem.
So when you really look at it, the choices and the outcomes are just crystal clear. You have self-amputation, like Intel did, which can lead to decades of dominance. You have optimization, like Nokia did, which leads straight to becoming obsolete. And then you have this new model, perpetual cannibalism, like Uniswap, which, honestly, it's becoming the new normal in any fast-moving industry. Look, at the end of the day, this isn't just some business school theory. It's a practical tool. A painful one, for sure, but a practical one. You have to remember, your proudest achievement is also your biggest risk. And hey, this isn't just for big corporations. This applies to your career too. That skill that makes you so valuable today, that's the mile-in that could blind you tomorrow.
But we can't finish this without talking about the human cost. It's easy to look at these case studies and see them as clean, strategic moves, but the reality is they're brutal. When Andy Grove made that call at Intel, he wasn't just killing a product line. He was ending the careers of thousands of people who had built that company from the ground up. Implementing Law 3 is incredibly hard, and this quote really gets at the heart of that. It's what separates a real leader from just a theorist.
And that really leaves us with one last thing to think about. Real strategic change, a real controlled demolition, it's supposed to be terrifying. It's terrifying by its very nature. So if you're looking at your own strategy right now, for your business or your career, and you feel comfortable, if you feel safe, it's probably not bold enough to save you.